Yeah, it was good to get these two teams back on the same court again, and we appreciate Coach Williams and his team competing the way that they did tonight. They did a great job, and obviously we got off to a good start, scored a few baskets, and got a few stops, and then they turned the tables, and our offense clearly sputtered. We were a little bit jittery. We missed some shots around the rim that you would think that we would typically make. There was a little bit of a lid on the basket, and thankfully we were giving up some offensive rebounds. Thankfully, our defense kept us in it at that point until we could play a little bit more like ourselves. And we did at times on offense, but not certainly enough for our liking. But we were pleased overall defensively with what our guys did, shy some of the fouling and the offensive rebounding, of course. But his teams have always been one of the top teams in the country at offensive rebounding, and we certainly knew that we were up for a big challenge in that regard tonight. I would like to say I'm sorry that they've dealt with a lot of injuries throughout the season so far. To see Payne, who's a really good player, not being able to be out there and playing, for them. Obviously transitions, how they play, and so in terms of a prep for us, it was a little bit wonky in terms of not knowing kind of how that was going to shake out and how they would play. But I thought Coach did a great job of substituting timely and controlling the pace of the game in the first half, and our guys woke up and stayed with it later in that half.
As you mentioned, your guys went through some rough stretches in each half, but it seemed like every time they eventually bounced back. Did you learn anything about the team tonight from the way it handled this adversity? Yeah,
just some resiliency. It's great to be in those moments, and certainly we were in those moments, certainly in the first half and the second half, and had to answer. And, teams that want to compete at the highest level, you have to answer. You're not going to play perfectly. This is not a game of perfect. And other teams prepare and do really well, and both teams, had a lot of practice time, leading into this. And, I thought our guys, relatively speaking, did a nice job to dig it out. I'm proud of the way that our defense held up when our offense was really struggling, like mightily in that first half.
Yeah, the 2 threes by Jakari and then his dunk. How much momentum did that give you guys there in the second half to pull away? And had you seen a dunk from Jakari like that in practice?
Not like that. Yeah, and I've seen him dunk, but not like that. Certainly, that was a big play. The fans were great tonight. We really appreciate the fans coming out. I know it's exams and the students aren't here, but we'll get them back in the building, sooner than later. But I thought the fans were awesome. They gave us a big lift, and we finally gave them something to cheer about at that point.
Ryan, you mentioned no Payne for Maryland. You guys get 44 points in the paint. You're plus 32 in that category. Just how much is that attributable to him not being in the middle?
Yeah, certainly he's a really good defender in there and rebounder. He's a great offensive rebounder. He scores. Their offense was designed in a lot of ways, not solely to get it to him when he's on the court, but that's what you're going to have to deal with. And they have good shooters around him, and it's a good balance, there. So, not having him obviously is extremely impactful. 18 points a game.
Hey, Coach, Coit has been so explosive for them this season. He has 0 points at halftime. What did you take away from him, and how cognizant were you guys of where he was on the floor?
Yeah, it was a little bit different for us. We had to have our bigs up at the point of the screen more because of his ability to get shots off. And so they started setting screens with other guys to get him loose in the second half a little bit more rather than the 5-man. And that caused us some problems, a couple of miscommunications, and then he gets one-on-one. He's really good going left to that step back. And so we wanted to try to limit that as much as we could.
Dallin Hall was very assertive offensively, especially in that second half. What type of spark does he give you when he is doing something like that?
Yeah, Dallin's huge. Our guys call him Cap, and he's steady, for us. He's been in some big moments over the course of his career. He's determined, to be a leader for this team. I texted him last night. His voice, I'm hearing it more and more and more with the guys in a more assertive way, and which is not necessarily natural, for him. And we really need that. And I think our guys respond to him. They respect him so much, and it's great to see him, play that way, the way that he did. We needed him to play that way tonight.
Coach, Virginia Maryland obviously is a very classic rivalry that hasn't really been played all that much in the past couple of years. Just talk a little bit about kind of the opportunity to renew it tonight.
Yeah, it's great to get it going again. I'm excited that I can be a part of it. It's special. I told the players, before in our preparation for this game, that we're all lucky to be a part of this, matchup. And there have been some great games. I sat in U-Haul and watched Ralph's last game against Maryland. Seen many at Cole Fieldhouse and the different places, and the coaches, that have walked the sidelines. Lefty Drizel, Gary Williams, Mark Turgeon, Tony Bennett. There have been some great Terry Holland, some great Jeff Jones. Been some great coaches that have walked the sidelines too. And so it's all about the players though. And you think about all the great ones on both rosters and two teams that have won national championships, and it's really special to get programs like that together, on the court. So we're thankful that it's happening.
Time for a couple more. We'll take one in the back and then chat. Yeah, Coach, just back here. A lot of good from tonight's matchup. Obviously, this one holds a lot of energy on both sides of the ball. But weren't able to come home with the rebound battle tonight, despite you guys having two big 7-footers out there. Maryland brought a lot of energy. Do you attribute that more to them coming in, knowing that they're going to be without Pharrell Payne, or is it more so your guys maybe need to do a little bit more on the block?
Yeah, I think we definitely need to block out more efficiently, and they're quick. They're quick and physical, and so they might not have the size, but they can move, and they're coming really hard out there. And they would move our bigs away from the basket some, and Washington's coming in there he had 5 in the first half. And so they're difficult to block out, and we've got to do better on that side. We've got to do a better job on the offensive side. I think it was 12-10 in the first half on offensive rebounds, but certainly a focus for both teams.
Did you feel, and do you feel in general, that as good as your offense has been this season, that when you go through those stretches that eventually you're going to snap out of it if you can hang in there defensively?
Yeah, I told the guys that if the lid's going to come off the basket if you lean into one another. Right? If you don't lean into one another and you don't pass the ball and you don't move your body and you don't have a positive attitude, and some of those, it's hard. When you're a basketball player and you miss a shot that you think you should make, that can drag you down and hurt your confidence. And so ultimately, how do you get your confidence back? You get it through your teammates, and you get it through your coaches. And certainly at that moment, our job was to keep our guys cool, but competitive, and we needed to compete harder. And I think Maryland was taking it to us early in that game, and their physicality and their pressure defense in the half court was bothering us. And our guys did a nice job of coming out of that timeout and beginning to play a little bit more confidently. And I do think that they leaned on one another, to get out of the rut that they were in. And that's what you don't have anybody else. You just have your teammates and who was on the floor with you. And so I thought our guys did a nice job of just leaning on one another.
Say to start that 13-0 run and to close the first half, Tillis had the little floater in the lane,
Yeah.
and then he had another layup. To have some veterans like Tillis and Hall, how important is it in those moments when things aren't going great?
Yeah, and they were flying at us, and we only took 9 threes in the first half, and so they're catching the ball, and then all of a sudden there's a guy on them, and when you're playing against a defense like that, you have to play with poise and shot fakes and ball fakes and things like that, and that particular play you're talking about was textbook. Shot fake, get in the paint, all right, the guy goes by you, then he shot fakes again, then he sees the open basket, and so when you're playing against a defense like that, you have to do that.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks.
Well, Coach,